All right, so we've got our June 2022 housing market update for the cities of Spruce Grove, St. Albert, Fort Saskatchewan, Sherwood Park, Beaumont, and Leduc. So if you're looking at any of those 6 suburbs of Edmonton, whether you're looking at buying or selling, this is the video for you. I'm going to split up the video by city. So if you look along the bottom track, you can select different chapters. Like if you just want to look at Leduc, for example, you can skip ahead to that part of the video. But I'm going to go through them one at a time, and there'll be 3 sections for each market. We're going to look first at the market as a whole, then just the single family home market, and then the condominium market, because the picture is a little bit different depending on whether you're buying or selling a condo or a house. So that'll give you some useful information. And so we're gonna actually start with Leduc first. Before we do that, I do wanna remind you, you can download a copy of every single one of these reports. You don't have to give me your email address. If you just look in the description below, you'll find a link to each one of these reports, and you can download the PDF for yourself. So let's look at Leduc first. This is using the most recent statistics available from the Realtors Association of Edmonton, which has all the stats from the month of May. We'll start with total residential for Leduc. So the whole market, the average price in May was $368,150, which is down 9.85% from April and down 4.46% from May. Sounds pretty scary on the surface. I would take that with a huge grain of salt. Since depends on what's selling. It's a very small market, so these average prices can be skewed quite easily. As you can see in the last 13-month history, it makes it look like the market's going up and down every month practically, so I wouldn't really pay too much attention to that. If we take a look at it for the year though, that's more stable because there's more transactions over the course of a year. So far in 2022, average prices in Leduc are up just over 8%. In 2021, we were up 5.12%, and in 2020, we were up 4.2%. So had a pretty good run on average prices in Leduc the last 3 years. Now, if we look at it compared to Edmonton, you can see Edmonton in 2022 is up just under 5% so far, and was up 6.86% in 2021 and only 0.92% in 2020. So based on that, Leduc's been outperforming Edmonton so far this year on average price gains. Now, if we take a look at what's actually active and selling on the market, at the end of the month, there was 130 active listings and 84 sales. So the number of listings is up 27.45% from April, but still down 34% from May of last year. And the sales volume's down 19.23% from April and down 9.68% from last year. This over here is the 13-month history of the balance of the market. This is one of the most important things to look at when you're trying to figure out, is it a buyer's market, is it a seller's market, that kind of thing, because you can see the balance of listings and sales. And you can see that it got really tight in February, March, and April. There was no green there. We were actually having more sales on a monthly basis than what we had active inventory. So that was less than 30-day inventory there for a while. That's really eased off a lot with 84 sales and 130 listings. That gives us an absorption rate of 64% for the month of May, which has decreased quite a bit from last month where it was pretty crazy. And that's basically made it so it's still a seller's market overall in Leduc, but it's not an insane seller's market like it was before. Now, the average days on markets was sitting at 20 days, which was down quite a bit from last month when we had 35 days on the market, and last year when we had 39 days on the market. Now let's look just closer at the single family home market itself. That was the market as a whole. Now let's look just at single family homes. The average price was $407,587, which was down 4.34% from last month and up 3.98% from last year. Again, here's the 13-month history. And you can see a lot of ups and downs again. Whereas if we look at it just for the year, so far we're up 8.23% for the year compared to 6.02% last year. And again, that's outperforming Edmonton this year on average prices, although Edmonton did outperform in 2021. Now, if we look at the active and solds, if you remember the numbers from the total residential, you can see most of the activity in Leduc is in the single family home market with 107 active listings and 66 sales. So the inventory is still up 38%, almost 39% from last month and down 32% from last year. And the sales are also down 30.53% from last month and down 23% from last year. Again, you can see that we have more balance coming into the market. It's not quite as strong of a seller's market, but it's still 61% listing absorption rate, which does still put it in a seller's market territory. but it's just kind of taking a little bit of the stress out of the market. It's going to remove some of the upward pressure on prices. Average days on market sitting at 19 versus 34 days in April and 37 days of May of last year. So that's pretty quick. Things are still moving pretty quick in Leduc, at least in the month of May. Now, if we just quickly look at condos in Leduc, you can see that the average price was $223,544, which was up just over 1% from last month, but down 26.31% from May of 2021. That's basically because there's very few sales. If you look over here, you can see that there was 23 active listings at the end of the month and 18 sales. So that's a very small market. So every single sale starts to have a big impact on the average price. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to those. But you can see that the condo market actually did better in May than it has for the last 13 months in terms of number of sales. They shot way up. Inventory stayed about the same from last month, but that actually put technically the condo market into a seller's market in Leduc. That I would also take with a grain of salt because there's only, less than 30 sales or less than 30 listings at a time. So maybe there was just some good listings that came up, or 10 extra people decided to buy that month, and then all of a sudden it changed the balance of the market, you could say. So that's a bit of an outlier, showing that the condo market in Leduc went from essentially a balanced market to a seller's market, just like that. Time will tell if that'll continue, but again, it's a pretty small market, so it's not going to have a huge impact either way. Average days on market for condos was sitting at 27 days versus 41 days last month and 59 days last year. So from that, looks like the condo market's doing good in Leduc. The next market we're going to look at is Spruce Grove. And again, we're going to start with the market as a whole. Before we jump into that, I just want to remind you, this gives you a great overall view of the market, but you can learn a lot more if you talk to me directly. You can reach out to me at 780-819-5508. Either text me or call me at that number, and I'd be happy to give you a free consultation, whether you're looking at buying or selling in any of these markets or in the Edmonton area. And you can also go to booktrevornow.com, select a time on my calendar. You can set up a strategy call with me, and then I'll call you. Or if you prefer email, you can go to trevor@trevortardif.com, and or you can email me at that email address. Okay, so let's look at Spruce Grove now. So the average price in Spruce Grove for May was $391,397, which is down 5.76% from last month, but up 3.46% from last year. Again, lots of ups and downs because it's a pretty small market. So I prefer to just look at it for the year. So far for the year, we're up 8.51%. Last year, we were up 8.44%, whereas in 2020, there was a bit of a drop of 1.2%. If you compare that to Edmonton again, you can see that Spruce Grove has been outperforming Edmonton in average price gains for the last 2 years. Now, if we go and look at the active and sold listings, at the end of the month, there was 153 active listings and 102 sales. So our inventory is up 19.53% from last month, but still down 27.5% from last year. And the sales volume is down just over 15% from last month and down just over 12% from last year. Again, same sort of story here. You can see that it was really hot in February, March, and April, but just like Edmonton and just like most of the surrounding communities, the balance has shifted a little bit, so it's not quite as insane. This is still seller's market territory technically in May here in Spruce Grove. We had a little bit more breathing room with 102 sales versus 153 active listings at the end of the month, but it's still pretty hot with an absorption rate of 66% or just over. So that's still seller's market territory. The average days on market was sitting at 26 days, which is down just a day from last month and down from 36 days in May of last year. Now, if we go and look at the single family home market, you can see that the average price for single family homes in Spruce Grove was $415,660, which is down 5.71% from last month and up 5.31% from last year. Again, that's the average price history on a monthly basis, a lot of ups and downs there. Whereas if we look at it for the year, you can see so far we're up 9.75% for the year. And in last year, 2021, we were up 8.19%, which again is outperforming Edmonton on average price gains. Now, looking a little bit closer at the active and sold listings, there's 106 active listings and 90 sales. So the number of active listings is up 32.5%, but down almost 35% from last year. And the sales are down almost 13% from last month and down 14.3% from last year. So you can see that the single family home market is still pretty tight in Spruce Grove. There's a little bit more breathing room, but not much. sitting at an 84.91% listing absorption rate. So it was still a pretty strong seller's market in Spruce Grove in May. What we're starting to see is a pattern here. A lot of these suburb cities, they haven't actually shifted as much as Edmonton did, which is really interesting. Average days on market was sitting at 20 days in May 2022, which was down from 23 days in April and down from 35 days in April 2021. Now, if we look over quickly at the condo market in Spruce Grove, the average price was $209,424, which shows a massive 22.23% drop from last month, probably because there was some cheaper condos selling. If we look at the year though, we're up 3.61% for the year versus 7.84% in 2021, which is also pretty much on par for 2022 compared to Edmonton condo prices, but last year condos outperformed in Spruce Grove compared to Edmonton. Now, if we look at the active and sold listings, you can see that there's 47 active condos at the end of the month, which is down 2% from last month and down 2% from last year as well. And the sales are down 33% from last month, but up 9% from May of 2021. So much different scenario in the condo market here compared to the house market. This is closer to what we're seeing in Edmonton, where, you know, single family homes are still pretty hot, but condos are more of a buyer's market. Sitting at a 25.53% listing absorption rate, I would put that in buyer's market territory. It did shift downwards a little bit from last month. Average days on market for condos were at 67 days compared to 48 days last month or 45 days last year. So if you're selling a condo in Spruce Grove, you're going to want to be realistic on your price. So let's take a look at St. Albert. Again, just remind you, I can give you a free consultation, whether you're a buyer or seller. Just reach out to me at 780-819-5508. Either text me or call me, or go to booktrevornow.com and select the time on my calendar. Okay, so let's take a look at St. Albert. Average price in St. Albert was sitting at $482,481, which is up 1.66% from last month and up 7.88% from May of last year. So far, we're up 7.27% for the year, and last year in 2021, we were up 7.55%. Both this year and last year are outperforming Edmonton in terms of average price gains. If we look over at the active and sold listings, we had 198 active listings at the end of the month and 181 sales. So the actives are up just 2.59% from last month, but down still over 40% from last year. And the number of sales are up 4%, just over 4% from last month and up 11% from last year. So St. Albert is outperforming Edmonton and a lot of the other areas. We're still seeing a strong seller's market in St. Albert. You can see we didn't really gain any breathing room here, sitting at a 91.41% listing absorption rate. Still a very strong seller's market in St. Albert, and it stayed about the same as April. So it peaked in March where we had over 100% absorption rate, but it's still pretty tight in St. Albert. Average days on market sitting at 21 days versus 22 days last month and versus 31 days in May of 2021. If we go and take a look at the single family home market, the average price was $545,755, which is up 2.59% from last month and up 9.97% from last year. If we look at that for the year, we're up 10.58% for 2022, and in 2021 we were up 6.21%. You compare that to Edmonton, we're outperforming Edmonton this year, but last year Edmonton outperformed St. Albert. Now looking over at the actives and solds, you can see there was 123 actives at the end of May, and there was 139 sales. So the actives are up just over almost 10%. Compared to last month, but still down 33% from last year, and the sales are up 4.51% from last month and up just over 11% from last year. So over 100% absorption rate here for single family homes. So you can see that that's the hottest part of the market in St. Albert. Still a strong seller's market, even though interest rates have been going up. If the balance stays like this, that's going to continue to put upward pressure on house prices in St. Albert. So we'll have to continue to see what happens. Interest rates are going up even more. Some lenders are starting to go over 5% now, and you're going to see that from the rest of the lenders here very shortly. And that will start to eat into the demand, I would suspect. Now, if we look at the average days on market, we're sitting at 18 days, which is technically up 1 day from April, but either way, 18 days is pretty darn fast. So wouldn't get your hopes up that stuff's going to sit on the market for a long time and give you much time to act. Last year we were sitting at 25 days in May. Now if we go and look at the condo market, average price in St. Albert was $273,076, which is just down 5.33% from last month and down 4.53% from last year. If we look at it for the year, where average prices are down 7.39% versus being up 14.33% last year, I would take these numbers with a bit of a grain of salt. I don't think there's enough sales, but it could just be some more expensive stuff was selling in 2021, and now we've got some cheaper condos selling this year. Now, if we go and look at the active and sales, we've got 75 active condos at the end of the month and 42 sales. So the actives are down a little bit from last month, and the sales are up a little bit from last month. So you can see that that's what the balance of the market is. So this is one of the only suburb cities that the condo market is almost seller's market territory at 56%. You could argue that's a seller's market. It's not going to seem nearly as insane as the single family home market though. And you can see that the condo market's been essentially elevated. It started in February and peaked in March. It went down a little bit in April and came back up in May. Average days on market for condos were sitting at 30 days versus 39 days last month and 51 days last year. So that's it for the St. Albert report. If you got a property in St. Albert or you're looking to buy in St. Albert, make sure to reach out to me so I can give you a free consultation. You can reach me at 780-819-5508. Either text me or call me at that number. Next market we're going to look at is Fort Saskatchewan. Total residential, we were sitting at an average price of $418,219, which is up 0.64% from last month and up 3.47% from last year. If we look at the gains for the year, in 2022, the average price is up 7.9% compared to being up 5.27% last year. Now, if we look at that compared to Edmonton, we're outperforming Edmonton this month or this year, but last year Edmonton did a little bit better in terms of average price gains. Now, if we look at the active and sold listings, we had 115 active listings at the end of the month and 76 sales. So the actives are up 15% from last month, but still down 46% from last year. And the sales are actually up from last month, 11.76%, and up 8.57% from last year. So you can see the balance of the market stayed about the same in May as it was in April. It hit its peak in March, taking a little bit of the intensity out of the market in Fort Saskatchewan, but it's still a seller's market overall with a listing absorption rate of 66%. If we look at the average days on market, we're sitting at 24 days on market compared to 26 days in April and compared to 34 days in May last year. If we go and look at the single family home market specifically, the average price was sitting at $443,054, which is just down a little bit from last month, but up 7.41% from last year. In 2022, average single family home prices in Fort Saskatchewan are up 9.15% compared to 7.07% in 2021, which is outperforming Edmonton this year and was just a little bit less than Edmonton in 2021. Now, if we look at the active and sales, we've got 80 active at the end of the month and 67 sales. So the actives are up 21% from last month and down 48% from last year. And the sales are up 15.52% from last month and up 1.52% from last year. Again, there's very little breathing room in the single family home market. It's eased up just a tiny bit. We have a little bit more inventory, but a little bit more sales. It balanced out a little bit more, but sitting at an 83.75% listing absorption rate, it's still a strong seller's market for single family homes in Fort Saskatchewan. So that can continue to put upward pressure on house prices. Even though interest rates have been going up, when you have that tight of a market, it puts a strong tilt on the seller side of the equation where they're just able to get more what they want and they still get to call a lot of the shots. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get the June stats, but using the most recent statistics for May shows that still a strong seller's market out there. Now, if we look at the average days on market, we're sitting at 24 days, which is the exact same as last month in April, and last year in May we were sitting at 32 days. Now, if we just look at the condo market, average price was $233,333, which is up 4.69% so far for the year, whereas in 2021 they were down 9.13%. So far this year, it looks like we're outperforming Edmonton, whereas there was a big hit last year in the average price gains, but I think there's just not enough sales for those average numbers to make much sense. As you can see, there's 35 active listings at the end of the month and 9 sales. So that does put you more in a buyer's market territory with a listing absorption rate of just over 25%. Stayed relatively equal balance since March, just shifting a little bit. Average days on market for condos was 25 days compared to 35 days last month and 60 days in May of last year. So that's it for Fort Saskatchewan. If you're looking at buying or selling in Fort Saskatchewan, make sure to reach out to me and book a time on my calendar for a free consultation. You can just go to booktrevornow.com and select the time on my calendar. All right, now we're going into Sherwood Park. So Sherwood Park total residential average price was $475,337, which was down 1.16% from last month and up 8.16% from last year. So far, we're up just over 5% for the year. We were at 4.23% in 2021. So it's just outperforming Edmonton just a little bit for the year so far on average prices, but Edmonton did better in 2021. Now, if you look at the active in sales, you got 158 actives at the end of May, and there was 156 sales. So the actives are up just 3.27% from last month, but down still over 35% from last year. But the sales were up 5.41% from last month and up 2.63% from last year. Sherwood Park's going at a slightly different beat than Edmonton. In Edmonton, we saw sales volumes drop while inventory went up in the last couple months, whereas sales volume has continued to inch up a little bit since last month here in Sherwood Park. So you can see there's very little breathing room in the market, sitting at a 98.73% listing absorption rate. Very strong seller's market. Even though interest rates are going up, you're going to see more upward pressure on prices unless this changes. Now, the average days on market was sitting at 21 days on average versus 20 days last month and 26 days in May of last year. Now, if we go and look at the single family home market in Sherwood Park, the average price was $515,021. which is down 2.31% from last month and up 11.33% from last year. So far for the year, we're up 8.74% in 2022 compared to Edmonton's 6.73%, and up in 2021, we were up 5.1% compared to Edmonton's 7.66%. It's outperforming Edmonton's average prices this year, but last year Edmonton did better. If you look at the active and solds, there was 81 active at the end of the month and 126 sales. So the actives are down almost 7% from last month and still down almost 45% from last year. And the number of sales are up 5.88% from last month and up 1.61% from last year. So there's obviously a lot of people that want to buy in Sherwood Park in the single family home market. And we managed to get a few more sales in May than we did in April, even though we had slightly less inventory at the end of the month. I'm sure there would be more people buying there if there was more houses. Sitting at 155% listing absorption rate, strong seller's market, very strong seller's market. 17 days average on market versus 16 last month and 23 last year. It's going to be probably a different story here looking at the condos in Sherwood Park. Average price was $308,665, which is up 6.07% from last month and down 8.44% from last year. If we look at the average price for the year, it does look like it's down 4.26%. compared to being up 7.99% last year. Don't think there's enough condos here to take that too seriously. If we look over at the actives and solds for condos, you can see there was 77 active at the end of the month and 30 sales. The actives are up almost 17% from last month, but still down 23% from last year. And the sales are actually still up a little bit, up 3.45% from last month and up 7.14% from last year. That's the balance of the market over here. Peaked in March when there was a lot more sales. With 42 sales, and it dropped to 29, now 30, while the inventory levels have gone up a little bit, shifting the balance of the condo market. Now the absorption rate was sitting at 38.96%, which is relatively balanced, still more in the buyer's favor. And the average days on market was sitting at 37 days compared to 36 days last month and 38 days last year. So if you're looking to buy or sell in Sherwood Park, send me an email. You can email me at trevor@trevortardif.com. and let me know how I can help you, and we can set up a call. Okay, last but not least, we got Beaumont. Total residential average price was $509,633, which was down 3.87% from last month, but up 10.88% from last year. If we look at the averages for the year, in 2022, so far we're up 18.41%, whereas last year we were up 6.99%. You compare that to Edmonton, it looks like it's doing a lot better this year, whereas it's pretty equal in 2021. That could be again skewed a little bit by the number of sales if we had some more expensive properties selling. Now, if we go and look at the active and sales, we had 89 active listings at the end of the month and 70 sales. So the actives are up 11.25% compared to last month, but still down 6.32% from last year. And the sales are actually up 40% from last month and up to almost 30% from last year. So good sales volume growth here, highest so far for the year with 70 sales. We did get a lot more inventory in April and May, which probably helped get the sales volume up a little bit more in Beaumont. Still pretty hot seller's market out there, sitting at 78.65% listing absorption rate. Seller's market territory for sure. Average days on market sitting at 27 days compared to 23 days last month and 28 days last year. Now, if we look at the single family home market itself, Average price was sitting at $523,580, which is down 3.15% from last month and up 11.78% from last year. If we just look at the average for the year, so far it's up 19.21% this year. They've had a pretty good run, you can see. I wouldn't trust all these numbers because some of these just look ridiculous, so I don't think we had very good data in those years or sold a lot more expensive homes, one or the other. Now, if you look at the active and solds, there's 86 active listings and 66 sales for single family homes in Beaumont. So the actives are up 16.22% from last month and up 1.18% from last year. And the sales are up 37.5% from last month and up almost 27% from last year. So we lost a little bit more breathing room in the market, putting it into a slightly stronger seller's market than it was in April, sitting at a listing absorption rate of 76.74%. Average days on market for single family homes was 27 days for Beaumont compared to 23 days last month and 26 days in May of last year. Now, if we quickly look over at the condo market, the average price was $279,500, which is basically the same as last month and up 20.24% from last year. These numbers are obviously not filled in properly, so average price trend ain't gonna help you much, basically because there's hardly any condos in Beaumont with 3 actives and 4 sales. That technically puts you at an absorption rate of 133%, but you've only got a handful of listings, so it's gonna kind of be all over the place and very sensitive. For those handful of listings that did sell, it was 16 days on average versus 14 days last month and 67 days last year. So that's it for the Beaumont market. If you're interested in checking out what's going on in the Edmonton market, I've got other update videos for that. If you got value out of this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you click over here, you can subscribe. And if you click over here, you can check out a playlist for more videos. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you got value out of this video, and I will see you on the next one.